Gibson, the host of Keeping It Real, the online TV show that's designed to help make spirituality practical. In other words, take what happens in the meditation room or your church or temple or synagogue and bring it into your everyday life. Get off that yoga mat and live your teachings. So today is the Spring Equinox 2017, March 20th. No matter when you're watching this, though, it can be your own personal spring. But I have a great guest today her name is Reverend Judith Laxer, and she is actually a priestess of Gaia's temple in Seattle, Washington. And she has written a book and has long lived the seasons of the year, the turning of the seasons and the turning of the spiritual year. And so today we're going to talk about spring and ritual and new beginnings. Let's join now Reverend Judith Laxer. Hi, Judith, and how are you today?
I'm good, Krysta. Happy Equinox to you.
Happy spring to you. I'm so glad that we could actually record this on the day of Spring Equinox.
Yes, me too.
So I've already told our audience about your book and your expertise. So kind of tell us about ritual and spring, and let's go from there.
Okay, well, talking about ritual first, I want to talk a little bit about why I think they're so important and how I feel they're really missing in our modern day culture. I mean, not completely, but compared to how I think the ancients used to live, we are virtually bereft of those sort of rites of passage.
Right.
And I think they're so important because they mark significant periods in our life or times in our life. And, we still have weddings, funerals, graduations. Some cultures still have like coming of age rituals. Mm-hmm. But in general, that's it. And there are so many other times in our lives that would warrant marking a significant transition from one life phase to another. Mm-hmm. Baby blessings we usually have.
Right.
But, a mother who's pregnant, there used to be a ritual called the Blessing Way, which is something that I still do, which is a blessing on the mother as she's growing this child in her womb, And then naming ceremonies, renaming ceremonies, new home, new job, not just wedding, but divorce. These are all significant shifts in our lives. And when we ritualize them or we ceremonialize them, we just mark our lives as we go, and we give them the meaning that I believe that they deserve or warrant in our lives. So I think it's important to do that.
Yeah, when you talk, just so we get clear for our audience, when you talk about ritual, kind of what do you mean, or a ceremony? Can you give some examples?
Sure. Well, yes, I'll give some examples. I think the reason... what I mean by example is you separate yourself from the mundane world by creating sacred space, and that can be as simple as turning off the telephone, making sure there's nothing else that's going to distract you, taking a couple of deep breaths, perhaps lighting a candle, saying a prayer. It's just like any time that we go to do that, and the word ritual, the R-I-T in ritual, is the same R-I-T in spiritual, and it's the same R-I-T in rite. So it means to do something in a sacred manner. And that means different things for different people because there's so many different ways that you can do that.
Right.
But typically it means that you're going to let the mundane world disappear, and you're going to focus on something that speaks more to your spirit and your soul. So you're approaching it in a sacred way. So, like I said, a very simple way to do that would be to light a candle, maybe say a prayer, take a deep breath, and focus on what it is that you're there for, that you want to give meaning to.
Right.
So that would be a way that you would begin. And then typically you state the reason for doing this. We are gathered here, right, to witness this wedding, to honor our beloved dead, to congratulate you on becoming a PhD, whatever it is.
Right.
So you state what the purpose is, and then typically there's some sort of a ritual gesture, something that is done that marks or commemorates what that rite of passage is all about, or what the meaning for this is. And that also can vary based on what it is. For a graduate, it's getting the diploma. becoming a member of something, maybe you get a membership pin. There can be all kinds of different things, or the wedding ring, it could be whatever it is that marks this particular thing. And then there's, you bless it. In some of the rituals where you really want to raise energy and focus your energy towards something, song, music, rhythm, these are all ways to kind of get that energy going and focused toward what the intention is for.
Right.
Beautiful.
That sounds like fun.
And it's fun. And it's a creative process, too, which is really wonderful because based on what it is, you can approach it. The only limit is your imagination, I think, when it comes to that. Yeah. So I think those things are really beautiful. And I think that they're also so necessary because the one thing that they do, like any event that you plan to participate in, it requires your thoughts, your focus, your planning. Right. Even if it's a birthday party, you have to make sure who's going to make the cake or how is it going to get here or what's the gift or is it going to be a surprise party? And so it slows you down to focus on what it is that you're commemorating.
Right.
We live in such an accelerated culture that says, hurry, hurry, hurry. The more we can produce is better. Whoever gets there first is the winner.
Right.
It's so blah.
Right.
When we slow down to give meaning to why we're working so hard.
Right.
The good stuff.
Yeah. It gets more into that state of beingness instead of always doingness.
Yes.
Yeah. Because we're such a doing culture and we really have gotten away from just allowing ourselves to be. And so, yeah, I can absolutely see how this whole idea of celebration or ritualizing or ceremonializing something can slow us down and let us be.
It does. And it's a relief. Yes. There's a feeling about it, like, oh, I can take a deep breath. And, on the pagan wheel of the year, if I'm a pagan priestess, so those are the solstices and the equinoxes and the cross-quarter days. There are 8 of them on the wheel of the year. Those are like holy days, like Christmas and Easter. And typically people don't work on Christmas and Easter. Right. So I don't work on the holy days, and that's a way for me to slow my life down a little bit, give it a little bit more spiritual significance by not engaging so much in the mundane world.
Right. So let's talk about spring.
Yes.
Since today is spring, kind of how does this fit into the year? And talk about that some.
Yes, sure. Well, today's the spring equinox, and when you follow the pagan wheel of the year, what starts to happen is you recognize that what we in secular society, like most people think, oh, it's the first day of spring today, but actually this is the height of the spring season. Oh. The first day of spring actually began at Imbolc, which is February 1st, 6 weeks ago. And it's hard to think of the beginning of February as spring. Right. And if you're really paying attention, and you're not under mountains of snow, you notice that, the buds are starting to form. Some of the leaves, the crocuses are starting to come up at that time. Life is beginning to stir and come to the surface and awaken. So spring actually begins at Imbolc, February 1st. Now we're at the height of spring. And this particular day today, it's called the equinox, of course, because it's equal day and equal night. So it's a balance point. And there are 2 of them on the wheel, of course, the autumn equinox and the vernal equinox. This is the vernal equinox today. And so it's not just that it's the first day of spring, because spring has already been happening slowly over the last 6 weeks, but now we're at the height of spring as we start to move towards summer. Now we can see not just the shoots coming up, but the flowers. Right. Daffodils are blooming already, and some of the cherry trees are opening, and, so you don't have to follow a pagan path to be delighted by the return of the light and the light and the beauty of nature. Right. But if you do follow nature in a spiritual context, then these Sabbaths along the wheel or these holy days mark what what that season is all about, so that it goes beyond just, oh, now I can take my coat off, or now I need a winter sweater or what have you. It becomes more.
I can start planting flowers or whatever. Yeah.
Flowers that start to get my garden going. Right. And so most of us know that, or we experience spring and spring cleaning happens. And it's just that's natural. desire to open the windows and sweep out the lethargy of winter.
Right.
So that's beautiful, and that can be a ritual.
Right.
Spring cleaning can be a ritual instead of a chore.
Right.
It's all your perspective.
Exactly.
And so one thing that I do, or that you can do on a day like today, if you, even if you don't have to get any more formalized than this, get out a broom and sweep your home. And most people, we use vacuum cleaners now, but there's something about using a broom
yes.
That moves energy as well as dirt.
Uh-huh.
And if you just sweep around in your home and sweep the dirt into little piles and clean it up and get rid of it, there's a significant difference in the feel of the house.
Right.
That's a very simple ritual that you can do, which is also productive.
Right.
But it moves energy,
Right. Well, and it makes sense too. You could add intention to it.
Yes.
As I'm sweeping up whatever it is, I'm sweeping up whatever bad habits, things I want to let go of, whatever. But you could actually use intention with this.
Yes, that's why it's such a beautiful. That's why rituals are so beautiful that way, because you can imbue them with your intention, which brings a very magical aspect to your life. Right. So, like if you're sweeping the kitchen, you can sweep out all those bad eating habits, or I'm eating too much sugar. I'm sweeping away my resistance to vegetables.
Uh-huh.
You can personalize it, customize it.
Sweeping away all the recipes that didn't work for the last few months.
Exactly. The ones that worked a little too well,
Yeah, or the ones that worked too well. That's right.
So that's one way that you can mark the height of spring. But when it comes to Ostara, so the Celts had their names for the different points on the wheel of the year, and today is called Ostara, and that is named for the Germanic goddess of the same name, Ostara, and that's actually the derivation of the word for Easter.
Right.
So many of our Christian holidays came from the pagan roots, right? From the Celtic pagan roots.
Right.
And so Ostara, and also the word, where we got the word estrogen. So it's really talking about the fertility of the earth as she awakens and rises and begins to grow again. Mm-hmm. So that's a good thing to keep in mind also, that at this time of new beginnings and as the life force energy is rising to the surface of the planet, what is rising in me that I want to grow and bloom and blossom? Right. And you can align your own world with nature, which is a beautiful way to go about it.
Exactly. And this is a great time to start new projects. It is. And we'll take it away from the astrology, because that's a whole other thing, in the sense that, today may not be an astrologically perfect day for something, but to get within terms of the seasons, this is the perfect time to look at new beginnings.
Right. And even as far as astrology is concerned, today the vernal equinox is the beginning of Aries. And
that's
Aries
true. That's right.
Is the child of the zodiac.
That's
right. Aries is the child of the zodiac. So that's something new and growing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. What I was thinking when I said that is, I know that Mercury's going retrograde like April 9th. And so we're kind of getting to be in the shadow of that. So I wanted to cover my bases in case there's an astrologer listening saying, no, don't do that. I'm like, I know, it's okay. Plus, I always say about astrology or about anything, they're just guidelines for us. And I think it's really important to not get stuck in that place of, I can't do this because the moon avoided a course, or I can't do that. It's just hey, maybe it's going to rain, so you got to take an umbrella. It might be more difficult, but it doesn't mean you can't do it.
Right, exactly. And I think using them as guidelines is the way to go as well.
Exactly. So let's talk about new beginnings.
Yes, okay. There's one more thing I wanted to say about the spring equinox, because I have another suggestion that would be wonderful. Ritual. But the word Easter also is, so it's derived from Ostara and estrogen. And the goddess Ostara, her sacred totem animal is the hare, the rabbit. And because it's a fertile time of the year, what is the symbol of fertility? Eggs. Mm-hmm. That's why we have an Easter rabbit.
Right.
It's totally pagan.
Right.
And I remember when I was a little kid thinking, why does the rabbit have eggs?
Right, I know. They don't lay eggs.
It never makes sense to me. And then I grew up and figured it out.
Right.
It's like, oh, that's really interesting. And so a great ritual to do for the spring equinox, and if you can do this today, it would just be wonderful. You need to get some soil and plant some seeds.
Right.
And you can, infuse those seeds, or you can even choose the seeds based on what your intention might be. And charge them up, say a prayer, give them a blessing, Same thing with the soil, the fertile earth, and plant them in sacred space. Water them as a metaphor for your blood, sweat, and tears that'll go into the tending of these intentions. And then just, hold them in a sacred way. But planting seeds is a great thing to do at this time of year.
It
because
is.
The awakening,
One of my favorite plants to use for that is parsley, because it's really hard to not be able to grow parsley.
It's true. It's hardy.
Yeah, it's a hardy plant. Sometimes people pick difficult ones and they're like, oh, no, it didn't come up. And it's like, pick something really easy. Parsley almost always grows for everybody, pretty much.
Yes. Yeah. And another thing that I like to do with seeds, especially if your intention, let's say your intention is to write your book this year, right? And finish the book this year. That's your intention. Now, it's only March. And if this year goes to the end to December, then we're talking about a fair amount of months. So it's great to get a mix of seeds, some that start early, some that are going to bloom later. And in this way, as they continue to come to fruition, it's carrying that magic a long time.
Nice. I like that.
Can mix it up a little bit.
That's right. That's awesome. Very good.
So new beginnings.
Yeah. What are some tips? We'll share some tips. You go first.
Okay. So I do a lot of work with candles. I'm a little candle woman. I love to candles. I always light a candle on the dinner table. I have candles going in my office all the time. And, because I look at that not only as a metaphor for spirit and the light of spirit that carries me along, but also there's something about the act of lighting the candle is sparking something new. So you can get a candle in a color that you would associate with a new beginning or a project or something that you're starting. And again, in some sort of sacred space, you can light that match or get that lighter going as the spark and initiating it. And then just knowing that as the candle burns, that energy is continued along the way. So candle magic is a great way to go at the time of something new. And you can also, if you get like a long taper candle, you can light it, you can burn it for a little period of time, snuff it out. Shoot it a little bit every day or as you're going along. And you can save the tiny little stub of it for the very end of the project. And then when it's finished, you can let it burn out until it's complete. And I know it seems almost ridiculously simple, but there's something in the psyche about knowing you are carrying that along with that intention that helps you get to the finish line, I think.
Well, that, and I think the whole thing of lighting a candle, candles speak to us, it goes way back in ancestral memories, where you're getting away from this electrical light, the light of a fire, right there. And it's a safe way to do it. And there's just something cozy and warm and nice about candlelight. And so I think it does. We all look good in candlelight. That's right. Now, I would suggest something right along with that. And that would be, I think when you're beginning a new project or whatever, it's wonderful to get a new journal and start a new journal. And I could see doing that with the candle. So sit down with your journal with the candle and write out your intentions. But even beyond that is also look at writing down when you're beginning at some basic beginning plans for what you want to accomplish. Because far too often I think people say, oh, I'm going to do this or that, but they don't make any plans. And, even if we take a trip, we make plans. And to use that sacred setting, it doesn't mean you're casting anything in stone. You're just saying my intention is to write my book this year. And here's kind of how I think it's going to go. I'm going to start with this and just do kind of a broad thing. And then, ceremonialize that. That's a hard word. Ceremonialize that. With the candle and with that intention, and then continue to use the journal as you move forward. Make it a living document of your process and of what's going on for you.
Right. And also, if you have an idea about something, but you can't address it right here now, you can get it down in the journal, and then everything around the project is in there.
Exactly.
And, another thing that I like to do when I do ritual also is, there's many ways to ritualize it, meaning that you do the same thing over and over.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a certain scarf that I wear, and I have a chime on my altar. So I will put the scarf around my neck. It's kind of like a vest. I think of it as a vestment.
Yeah.
I'm a priestess, so I love that, So there's like a special something that I only wear when I'm addressing things on a spiritual level.
Right.
And then I light the candle, and then I ring the chime.
Nice.
That just gets me to just kind of take a deep breath and focus in. And, and then you sit there and you write or you do whatever it is. And then when it's finished, you snuff out the candle, ring the chime again, take the thing off, and it just separates it from the rest
I
of
like
life.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very nice. And one thing I want to talk about with new beginnings is to have courage. So often when people start new things, they start off, and it's good to have enthusiasm. I'm really big, if you don't have enthusiasm for whatever it is, don't bother. But with the enthusiasm, have courage and realize you're stepping into something new. It's like the fool in the Tarot. She's stepping off the cliff, but, she's smiling, she's happy, she's got her little dog. And it's like, you're stepping off a cliff. Have that enthusiasm, that sense of newness, and allow yourself to have courage. Say, no, I don't know what's going to happen. I know what I think might happen. I know what I want to have happen. But have the courage that, okay, maybe there's going to be a little turn in the road that I'm not expecting. And instead of being afraid, go, oh, surprise.
Yes, exactly. It's like approaching it with curiosity instead of fear. Yes. And I'm a bit of a wordy nerd, and I know you are too, and so I'm always breaking out the etymology of words. Right. And courage, so the C-O-U-R of courage is French for heart, and age is time. So really having courage is heart time. And I think that if you get back to the heart of what it is that you really desire, that will help you find or be courageous in the moment of unknown.
Absolutely, because you stay focused in that way, and then those things that come up that maybe do look scary, it's easier to overcome them.
Exactly.
Or to meet them, whatever word you want to use, but deal with them
Yes. And also another good trick about courage that I've found is I think it's good to look back over your life at times when you have been afraid of something and then seeing how you've come through or how, because that gives you evidence.
Right.
Oh, you know what? I've been frightened before. I managed to get through. It actually turned out better than I could have hoped. And now here I am, unafraid to pick up that spider and bring it outside, that sort of thing. So you have a little evidence from your own life, and that can help you too. Even though the situation would be different, you can see that a previous time when there was an unknown and you turned out to be just fine and nobody died and it was good.
Well, the other thing I tell people is if you're really afraid of something, or afraid to do something, afraid of whatever, take it all the way through to the conclusion of the worst possible thing happening. Right. And when you do that, you go all the way through. Okay, if that happens, then what? Will I be okay? Yeah. If that happens, what will I do? Oh, yeah. If that happens, and take it all the way. I tell people take it all the way up to being homeless under the bridge.
Right.
Because what will happen? Will you deal with it? Yeah, you will. And then it's like you face it and then you go, okay, now I can let that go. Because I know, because the chances of any of that happening are pretty slim. But you faced it and you thought, I will survive that. Even if I die, guess what? I will survive. My body might not, but I will. And it just takes that whole charge off.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to go about it.
Face the fear in absentia.
Face the fear in absentia. And the other thing, as you were saying that, I was thinking that I'm losing my point right now, but it was something that came to my mind when you were talking about what's the worst thing that can happen. Oh, just that, yes, this is it. That the thing that you're most afraid of, that is where your power lies. Mm-hmm. Because when you conquer that fear, or you have your fear but you show up anyway and you work through it, you are never more powerful.
That's right.
Than then. And so if you want to really feel empowered, what are your fears? And go
Right.
after them.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's power there.
Right. Absolutely. Well, tell us a bit about your book and some of the work that you do. Because I think
Yeah.
people would be very interested, because I know your book is great. I reviewed it. And tell us
Thanks.
more about your actual work that you do with people.
Yes, well, I have a private practice, and in that work, I have an office right by Green Lake in Seattle, and I work as a psychic, so I read tarot cards for people if they're seeking the, information and wisdom from the oracle. I do a lot of spiritual counseling as a priestess and a minister, so sometimes I'll just talk with people about where they feel they might be having a crisis of faith, or they're looking for different ways to enact their faith in their life, and I can work with them in that way. I'm a hypnotherapist also, so sometimes we'll use hypnotherapy to work through some blockages or fears, or to do past life regressions, which are always fascinating and help to connect with, perhaps why something might be occurring in your life now that you can't source in this life, but then we can go back into a past life and find the source of it, which can be helpful. And I also have a small women's mystery school where I teach the magical arts and goddess spirituality and psychic development. So if people are interested in that, they can talk with me a little bit more about that. And then I founded the ministry called Gaia's Temple. And this September, Krysta, we're going to be 18 years old.
Wow. Wow. Coming of age. Coming of age.
Talk about coming of age. No kidding. I look back, I think, oh my goodness, that's almost the last 2 decades of my life.
Wow.
Where did that go,
Isn't that amazing?
But, yeah, it is amazing. But it's a house of worship for the divine feminine, and it's here in Seattle. We meet on the second Sunday of every month. And there are worship services, but at those services, you're going to hear her and she instead of just he and him. It's balanced that way in that we honor the divine feminine as well as the divine masculine.
Right.
And it's called Gaia's Temple because the Greeks called the earth Gaia. And we honor Mother Nature and seek to develop our compassion and relatedness living here as earthlings on the planet.
Right.
So I offer those services as well. So all of my work is spiritual in nature. And the book, which is Along the Wheel of Time, is a collection of 8 short stories that accompany the points on the wheel of the year. So you can read the whole book through if you'd like, but you can also come back to it or just read the fictional story that is associated with that Sabbath as you go, along the wheel of time. And hopefully they'll help to deepen your connection to nature. And they're fictional stories, and so they just depict different people in different times of the year engaging in their spiritual and magical lives. And,
it's a very fun book. I really did enjoy it. So, yeah, it's really good. So what is your website and email, or if people want to get in touch with you?
I have 2 websites. My personal website is judithlaxer.com. And then the ministry for Gaia's Temple is gaiastemple.org. And that's spelled GAIAS temple.org. And there's contact pages on both, so that's the easiest way to reach me. And you can also call me if you'd like to do that directly, and that's at 206-529-8085. That's my office number.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Judith. I've really enjoyed our chat. The time just flew. I don't know what happened to it, but so thank you. I just so appreciate the sharing and the ideas that you gave to us. It was great.
Thank you, Krysta. I'm just honored to be a guest on your show. It's a beautiful show, and I'm very, very grateful. And have a wonderful, happy spring.
You too. Take care. Wow, those were some really great ideas that Judith shared, and I'm actually looking forward to rewatching the show and writing some ideas down that I want to do. But I got to thinking about it too. There's something I want to share with you. I was talking about having the courage to do things and starting, and whether it's spring or not, we all have different projects that we want to do. And I remember a time when I started my first newspaper called the New Times a few moons ago. And I was dragging my feet. I thought I needed money to do it. I thought I needed this, that, and the other thing because I really didn't know what I'm doing, which isn't that the truth. A lot of times we don't know what we're doing, but we do it anyway. And one of the things that happened for me when I was sitting on the fence and just just couldn't get myself going to really start the project. I wanted to do it. I wanted the newspaper, but I felt I needed money. I didn't have the money, and I just kept dragging my feet. Anyway, one day I opened the mail, and I talk about this in my book called Anything is Possible, which is my autobiography. I used to say memoir until I found out that's not right. It's an autobiography. Anyway, I opened the mail, and there was this quote in a newsletter from a New Thought church. And after I read this quote, it really got me going. So I'm going to share it with you. And whether it's right now you're sitting on the fence or it's sometime in the future, maybe this will help you. Here's the quote. It's by Goethe. And I know you've heard it before. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man or person could have dreamed would have come his or her way. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. So after I read that, I picked up the phone, I quit my job. Did wonderful things happen immediately? No, there was a lot of silence. You can read all about it in my book. But it did set things in motion. And so I offer that to you. If you're not moving forward with your project, if things aren't happening quite the way you think they should, why not take a look at it and ask yourself, have I made a commitment to whatever it is? And if you find out, gee whiz, I'm just still in the wishing stage, I really haven't made a commitment, then perhaps you could come up with some sort of ritual like Judith was talking about, where you could say, okay, this starts the beginning. This marks my commitment to whatever it is, and I'm going to do it. And here's how I'm going to do it, and here's the commitment that I'm making. Thank you for watching. Appreciate having you here. And remember, whatever's going on in your life, keep it real.